name's Miranda and today I'm here to review the new book, The Initial Insult by Mindy McGinnis. This book was on my top anticipated books of the year. I cannot say enough about how much I love Mindy McGinnis. I just think she is one of those authors. She never does the same thing twice. Like, her books range from like contemporary to historical mystery to thriller. Her last book was a survival, like Hatchet-esque book that was all about this one character, and now her next one is The Initial Insult, which is actually a retelling of, I don't know how to pronounce it because you know I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but you know the Edgar Allan Poe story where the dude builds a brick wall and like entombs that guy that he's mad at? That's what it's based on. It's Cask of something. I just don't know how to say the A word, which is an a-hole. It's just another A word. But this is a retelling of that, so it takes place basically between the 2 points of views between Felicity and Tress, who used to be best friends and had a kind of falling out after Tress's parents went missing when they were driving Felicity home one night, and Felicity is the only like witness to what happened, but she doesn't remember anything that happened. So Tress this one night decides at a party that she's going to get Felicity to tell her once and for all what happened by interrogating her and then building the brick wall up slowly until she tells her what she wants. So I was really excited for this book. I think the cover's gorgeous, the title's really cool, and the premise of a retelling like that, I've never read a retelling like that. I mainly find like fairy tale retellings and stuff like that, or Greek mythology retellings. I've just never ever heard of a retelling of an Edgar Allan Poe story before. So that's why I'm unfortunate to say that I was a bit pretty disappointed by it. I think there were a lot of things that could have been done just slightly better, and it is a duology, so I think overall maybe my biggest thing is just I feel like making it a 400-something page standalone instead of two separate duologies might have made it better, because I do think once the next book comes out I will want to go back and read this, and I'll probably pick up on things that I missed in this one that you just don't know the answers to, because I mean the big question in this one is what happened to Tress's parents, and I feel like we kind of got an answer but kind of not. We got the who but not necessarily the why or the how. My main thing was it's from both Felicity and Tress's point of view, and I think that is almost kind of detrimental to the story, because the whole thing is that you're supposed to, I mean from my point of view at least, you're supposed to kind of feel with Tress, like not even if you necessarily think what she's doing is right, but understand where she's coming from and why she's doing this. And again, you don't have to be like, yeah, I do it too, but like not being so turned off by it. And I unfortunately did feel like I felt like I couldn't get behind her narrative and her story, and I think that is because the novel was dual point of view. So like you got Felicity's just as much as you got Tress's, and I think had you just gotten Tress's and not known like, is Felicity really lying? Does she not remember what happened? Is she playing like a victim but she's the villain? Like there could have been all these questions where you don't know, but because you got Felicity's point of view, you know for a fact she does not remember what happened that night, and you know that no matter how many bricks Tress seals in her, the truth ain't gonna, like, she's not just gonna be like, you're right, I'm lying. Like, her memory might start coming back if she really forces it, although I doubt that will happen after hitting her in the head with a brick. But I was telling my friend about this book and saying how I was reading a retelling of the Edgar Allan Poe story, and she was like, oh, how did they like do that with YA with like getting the wine? And I was like, oh, drugs. And then, you know, she hits her over the head with a brick, and she's like, yeah, that makes sense. But I do feel like I liked Felicity's character more than Tress's, which I don't know if that's how you're supposed to. Like maybe other people are and that's like how it's supposed to be, and maybe we'll get more of Tress in the second book, but I just feel like Felicity felt like the more rounded three-dimensional character, where she felt so guilty for this thing, you know, like not even that it's her fault, but just that it's, you know, she can't remember. She's the only one that maybe have some sense of what happened to them, because they don't know if they're alive, if they're dead. They just know that they disappeared, and she can't remember anything other than the fact that someone pulled her out of like the wreckage and left her on the bank. The whole town is very much like, act like you're prim and proper, don't ever admit anything is wrong. So she has to, you know, never, like, even if this is affecting her, she can't act like it, you know, she has to keep up appearances and that everything's okay. And that's also why she's not friends with Tress anymore, is that Tress doesn't fit into that, like everyone kind of, Tress is without a family now, so like no one really wants to hang out with her, and it's her mom and like her friends that are like, nah, we really shouldn't hang out with Tress, and like that kind of goes on and on. But I think you see the guilt she feels for it. You see that she doesn't really know what happened. And I think almost maybe if there was some kind of revenge plotline more of not a like, I'm sealing you in here till you tell me what happened to my parents, but I'm sealing you in here because of what happened to my parents, because they were driving Felicity home and like that's the reason they were out. I think that would have worked a little bit more for me instead of being like, you know, why it happened. I also think the reasoning behind, and again, I think that's why being like, because of you that this happened would have been better, because the reasoning between like why she just like flips all of a sudden is like 7 years later, like now I'm sealing this girl in with bricks. It's not strong enough for me. Like a lot of it is not strong enough. And the funny thing is they switch back and forth between flashbacks and the present day, and they switch back and forth between the points of views, and there was just constantly things where they were talking about something and Felicity would be like, give me an example, blah, 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 of like something I've done to you, and Tress would just say like a sentence about something that like obviously was a memory for them, like the rain or something like that, and then Felicity would react like from her point of view, be like, oh no, like, oh shit, I have nothing to say to that, or like my stomach bottoms out, and you think it's gonna be something awful, and then it's not. Like a lot of awful things happen to Tress, and Felicity happened to be in the vicinity, in the area, but a lot of the time she was not the active participant. Like there's 2 cases in particular that I'm thinking of where she was not the person that did the thing that Tress is really upset about, so I'm like, I get maybe being upset about the fact that like she didn't stand up more, but at the same time Felicity is also 16, 15 when some of these happen, and I just feel like it's very hard to stand up to like your parents at that age, and like there was just like it just constantly happened where she would be like the Notebook, and then like they'd flash back to the Notebook and it's such a nothing thing that's like not even Felicity's fault, and I would just like look up from the book and be like, am I on candid camera right now? Like, what, am I being punked? And I think the fact that like they tried to make it more dramatic, like Felicity would be like, oh no, like my stomach. There's also 2 very weird kind of subplots going on in the background that I think are going to be more interesting to see how they play out in the second book. So Tress lives with her grandpa at a like zoo, kind of one of those like animal attraction zoos, and there's a panther there that gets out during the night of the party where she's going to seal Felicity in with the bricks, and you kind of get some of the Panther's point of view, which is interesting, and I think again that'll be something that comes back more, but like there's just a panther at this party all of a sudden, so you gotta roll with that. And then there's also this, which is really really weird to me in the times we're living in, a flu epidemic going around in the town, and people start getting sick all of a sudden. It's like there's all these 3 things, and I can't tell if in the second book they're going to be connected or if it just happens to be like just 3 random things happening. I feel like it has to be connected somehow. They cannot be random. I almost feel like that's the thing with the second book, is I almost felt like at points I'm like, oh, is this going like in a supernatural direction and like something's happening? Like I just would wonder if that being all connected would be like some supernatural kind of thing in the second book. And what I think is interesting is sometimes I like to open up to, you know, like the copyright section and see all the things it's listed as, because sometimes that can give away some spoilers for like what the genre is, and there weren't any in this, so I couldn't tell if it was like also listed as supernatural or fantasy for future books. But yeah, those 2 storylines were really weird, and I think just especially with the times that we're living in, that's something to be aware of, because there are like people puking and people getting sick and passing out, and it's triggering for on the best of days, I think, and especially now, like just something to be aware of, because I did not realize that. They tell you in the summary that something happens at the party that's like a distraction to what Tress is doing to Felicity. It's that. And I didn't realize that. And then I also felt like aside from Felicity and like Tress, I kind of like Tress, but she didn't feel really drawn out. Like I said, like she felt kind of flat. A lot of the characters just aren't fun or nice. Like there's this one guy, Hugh, who is friends with both Felicity and Tress, and he's supposed to be like this nice guy who just puts on like an Ash Hollis persona, but I feel like even if it's a persona, you're still doing those things. So like I'm not gonna root for him because like the things he did in this book were awful and didn't really make sense. And I felt like that was the main thing, was just like things that I was supposed to just roll with and accept that like they're big or they're okay because our characters are accepting they're, you know, important or just okay. I had problems with. I was like, no, I can't just roll with this. Like this is weird, you know, like the same thing with Tress, like freaking out about things with Felicity that I seemed like no big deal to me, or like seemed like little slights, which I get. Again, that's the like whole thing of the stories, like these little slights add up, but like they're so like not even slights by Felicity, they're slights by other people. The whole Hugh thing, yeah, it was just kind of like everyone is like how he acts is okay because it's not really him, but I'm just like, no, like someone still needs to tell. There's one character who's like the voice of reason in this book, and literally she's not in it enough, I think, because this book would have been done in 50 pages if she knew everything that was going on, but I'm just like, you go, girl. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what the second book is going to be about. This one ended very strangely, to sum it up lightly, and it also, though, had a really good twist about what happened with Tressa's parents. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think it was surprised me in that I knew something was up with this person who's involved, but I didn't know that was it exactly. So that's why I'm excited to read the second book and see who the points of view are going to be, what's going to happen, like who's going to get their comeuppance, all that stuff. So although I didn't love it, I do think it's an interesting read, and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I'm definitely going to be reading the second one to see if everything kind of connects more and stuff like that when it does come out. So if you have read this book or are interested in reading it, please feel free to leave your thoughts about it down in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!